If your homepage lists 10 different kinds of travel you book, here's the thing: you're probably not coming across as more capable. You're coming across as less of an expert in any one of them. And I know that feels backwards. Listing more feels like it should help. It usually does the opposite. So today, I want to get into something that comes up almost every single time I'm working with a new client on their site. How do you actually show what you specialize in without either narrowing yourself so much it feels like you're turning away business or just throwing everything up there so it looks like you'll do whatever anyone asks for? And there's a name for what happens when you go too far in that second direction. I call it the buffet problem. I'm going to walk through what that actually is, why it happens, what specialty even really means, and how to show it in a way that actually builds trust instead of just listing it out. I'm Justin Hinkle. This is the Travel Advisor website show. Go ahead and subscribe. Okay, so picture this. Somebody pulls up an advisor's website for the first time, and this is honestly what I see more than almost anything else. A beautiful destination photo on the homepage, something like, let me plan your perfect getaway, or your next adventure starts here. And then right below that, a list: cruises, family travel, destination weddings, honeymoons, all inclusives, Europe, Caribbean, maybe a few specific destinations thrown in too. It just kind of keeps going. And look, I get exactly why it's there. Every advisor has had that moment where they found out after the fact that a client didn't even know they could help with something, a cruise, a group trip, whatever it was. And they think, man, I wish they'd known I'd do that too. So the instinct becomes, okay, I'll just put everything on the site so nobody's left wondering, which on its face makes total sense. But here's what actually happens when somebody lands on that page. They see this big list, and instead of thinking, oh, great, they do it all, they think, I don't really know what this person's known for. It starts to feel like less they can help with anything and more like they kind of say yes to everything and figure it out as they go, which probably isn't true at all, but that's how it reads. So picture somebody who's specifically looking for a cruise specialist. They land on that page, and cruises is what, the third item in a list of 10? They don't feel especially confident this is their person. So they keep looking, and eventually they land on a site where cruises is clearly, obviously the main thing. And that's who gets the call. So here's the thing I want to name, because I think once you can picture it, you'll start seeing it everywhere, including maybe on your own site. I call it the buffet problem. Think about an actual buffet for a second. It's got everything on it, right? Pasta, sushi, tacos, a carving station, a dessert bar, the whole thing. And it's not bad exactly, but nobody ever walks up to a buffet and says, ooh, I bet the sushi here is incredible. Nobody expects the best version of any single dish at that buffet. That's just not what a buffet is for. A buffet is for a little bit of everything, and none of it's going to blow you away. Now, a restaurant that specializes in one thing, completely different feeling. You walk into a steakhouse, you expect a great steak. You walk into a place that only does ramen, you expect them to have figured out ramen at a level that the buffet never will. That's the buffet problem. When your homepage lists out 10 different kinds of travel with equal weight, cruises, all inclusives, Europe, family trips, weddings, whatever, you're not coming across like the steakhouse. You're coming across like the buffet. Lots of stuff, nothing you're clearly the best at. And here's the kicker: you might genuinely be excellent at all 10 of those things. That's actually really common with advisors. But excellent at 10 things, presented as a flat list, reads completely differently than exceptional at this one thing with real depth to back it up. One feels like a buffet, one feels like a specialist. And people are drawn to specialists, especially for something as personal and as expensive as travel. Now, I want to pause here because I think there's a little bit of fear around the word specialty, and that's worth pulling apart. A specialty doesn't mean that's the only thing you do. It means that's the thing you're best at, the thing you do most, the thing where if somebody walked up to you with that exact need, you'd be the most useful person they could possibly talk to. And honestly, most advisors, if they're being straight with themselves, already have that. Maybe it's not one tiny little niche, but there's usually a pretty clear cluster of things where they're just deeper than they are everywhere else. I've talked to advisors where 90% of what they book is cruises and the rest is just whatever comes their way. Or they do all kinds of travel, but destination weddings are where they've really built something. They know the venues, the vendors, the timelines, all of it. Or, family travel is their thing. And they know how to make a Disney trip actually work for like 3 different age groups and a grandparent who needs an afternoon nap. That's what should be front and center. Not because you're slamming the door on everything else, but because leading with your real strength is what makes the right person stop scrolling and go, wait, this is exactly who I've been looking for. Now, a lot of advisors are going to hear this and think, okay, but it's not just one thing for me. I've genuinely built depth in 2 or 3 areas. Maybe it's cruises and luxury resorts or family travel and river cruising. And you don't want to just pick one and pretend the others don't exist because that wouldn't be honest either. And that's completely valid, by the way. The fix isn't to force yourself into a single box that doesn't actually fit. But here's the distinction: the way you show multiple specialties is different from just listing them out. The thing that actually matters is showing real depth in each one, not just naming it. So if you specialize in both cruises and destination weddings, you don't just slap both words on a list. You build out real content around each. You talk about what you actually know, the ships you've sailed, the venues you've worked with personally, the things that tend to go wrong in destination wedding planning, and how you head them off before they happen. Maybe you've got dedicated sections or whole pages for each one. Photos from real trips, real specifics. That reads completely differently than a bullet list. A list signals I'm familiar with this. Depth signals I actually know this. And those are two very, very different impressions to leave somebody with. There's something else I want to get into here, which is the difference between what I'd call your primary positioning and your secondary work. Your primary positioning is what you want to be known for. Like if somebody asked you at a conference, so what do you do? What's the first thing out of your mouth? That's your primary positioning. And that's what should be the most prominent thing on your site. It's in your headline, it's in the first thing people see, it's woven through how you describe yourself, basically everywhere. Your secondary work is everything else that's real. The other things you genuinely do and do well, but it's just not the lead. And here's what most sites do instead: they treat everything as primary. Every specialty gets the same size box, the same spot in the navigation, the same amount of attention on the homepage. And when everything's equally featured, nothing actually stands out. It all just kind of blurs into one big we do travel impression. What works so much better is having one clear lead. Here's the main thing I do, and then letting the rest of the site round out the picture from there. Somebody finds you because you're a cruise specialist, and the second they land, they go, yeah, I'm in the right place. And then as they keep exploring, they discover, oh, and they also do destination weddings. That's cool. But they came in through the right door for them. That's the part that matters. I want to spend a minute on cruise advisors because it's probably the most common specialty I run into. And there's something that gets missed pretty often. Cruising as a category is actually really broad, right? Ocean cruising and river cruising are totally different experiences for totally different people. Luxury lines like a Seabourn or a Regent are basically a different world from mainstream lines like a Carnival or Royal Caribbean. And expedition cruising, that's its own thing entirely, separate from both. So if you've built real expertise in one particular slice of that, it's worth actually saying so. Like, picture an advisor who mostly works with first time cruisers. That's a real specialty. They're great at helping someone who has zero idea where to start figure out which line even makes sense for them, which ship, which itinerary is going to give them a good first taste without totally overwhelming them. That's genuinely valuable. And somebody who's never cruised and is honestly feeling a little nervous about the whole thing lands on a site that says, I specialize in helping first time cruisers find the right ship. And they feel this little wave of relief like, okay, this person gets exactly where I'm at. Now flip it. Picture an advisor who's mostly on the luxury end. They've got actual relationships with those cruise lines. They've sailed the ships themselves. They know which suites are actually worth the upgrade and which ones aren't. Totally different positioning, totally different client. Both of those are cruise specialists, but one is clearly built for the nervous first timer, and the other one is clearly built for somebody who's done a few cruises already and is ready to go up a level. I specialize in cruises. On its own, gives you neither of those. It's the buffet version of being a cruise expert. Destination specialties are another spot where I think advisors really undersell themselves. A lot of advisors have been to certain places, like a lot. They know a destination at a level most people never will. They've got real opinions about which properties are worth the splurge, which time of year actually makes sense, what it's actually like on the ground. Not the brochure version, the kind of knowledge that is genuinely valuable. It's not interchangeable with what some other advisor down the road knows. But on most sites, all that gets squeezed down into a destinations page, just a list of places with 2 or 3 lines under each, which barely scratches the surface of what the advisor actually knows. If you've been somewhere 5, 6, 10 times, if you've actually got specific, hard won knowledge about it, that deserves more than a checkbox. Even just a paragraph like, I've been to Costa Rica 7 times. And at this point, I know which lodges are actually worth the drive into the rainforest versus which ones oversell the experience, which beach towns get overrun during dry season, and how to actually structure 10 days there so you're not spending half the trip in a van. That's a completely different thing than Costa Rica next to a stock photo of a waterfall. One's a category, the other's proof you've actually been there and paid attention. How you structure your site plays into all of this too. I want to bring up something connected. The way a lot of these sites are actually structured. A lot of advisors have a services page that's basically just a list. Cruises, all inclusives, family travel, Europe, Disney. Each one gets a paragraph, maybe two. It's fine, it's just not doing much for you. What tends to work a lot better is organizing around the client situation instead of just a category of travel. So instead of a page that's called cruises, what if it was planning your first cruise or finding the right cruise for you? Instead of family travel, maybe it's Disney trips or family vacations that actually work for everyone. Instead of destination weddings, something like planning a destination wedding without losing your mind. When you organize around what the person's actually trying to do, not just the type of trip, they find themselves in it so much faster because they're not out there searching for the category that matches my trip. They're searching for something that sounds like my situation. And those two things end up living in different places more often than you'd think. So the thing I hear constantly when I bring this up is some version of, okay, but if I get this specific, aren't I going to turn away clients I could have helped? And I get why that feels true. But here's the thing, being specific about your specialty isn't putting up a wall that says, go away if you're not exactly this. It's just being clear about where you're the most useful. And the people who do match that description, they're going to trust you more, faster, because you basically just described them back to themselves. They show up already feeling like they found the right person. And the people who don't match it perfectly, a lot of them are still going to reach out anyway, especially once they get on a call and realize, oh, this actually applies to me more than I thought. Getting specific doesn't slam the door. It just means the right people get through a whole lot faster. There's one more piece of this worth saying. The clients who find you because you specifically describe their exact situation, they tend to be better clients across the board. They came to you because they felt like you were the right fit, not because you were the first thing that popped up in a search. They're not out there shopping you against 3 other advisors on price. They found their person. That's a fundamentally different relationship from minute one. The last thing I want to bring up, content. Blog posts, guides, anything educational you've got on your site. If you've got a real specialty and you write even just a handful of posts that go deep on it, genuinely useful, specific stuff that shows you actually know this stuff inside and out, that does more to establish you as the expert than any list of specialties ever could. Say you specialize in river cruises and you write a post comparing the major river cruise lines, or the best time of year for a Rhine cruise versus a Danube cruise, or what actually expect on a river cruise if you've only ever done ocean cruising before. Somebody out there researching exactly that finds your post, reads it, and just knows. They can tell you know what you're talking about, way more convincing than the word river cruises sitting in a list somewhere. And here's the bonus that's also genuinely good for search. When you're writing detailed, specific content about a particular kind of trip, you're a lot more likely to actually show up when somebody nearby searches for that thing. Because at that point, you're competing with other local advisors, not Expedia. And honestly, most advisors aren't writing detailed content like that at all. So the bar to stand out here is lower than most people assume. If you're listening to this and thinking about your own site, here's where I'd begin. Be honest with yourself about what your real specialties actually are, not what you're capable of doing, what you're genuinely best at, and what you do most. If the bulk of your bookings are one particular type of trip, that's probably your real specialty, whether or not you've actually ever called it that. Then, think about who the ideal client is for that specialty, not someone who wants a cruise. Get specific. Who exactly is that person and what are they dealing with right when they find you? The more specific you can get about that person, the more your copy and your whole positioning is going to click into place. And then take a step back and look at your site and just ask, if my exact ideal client landed here right now, would they immediately feel like they found the right place or would they land on a buffet? The instinct to list everything comes from a good place. You don't want to miss out on business. You don't want somebody to not realize you can help them. That's a completely understandable instinct. But the buffet problem is what happens when that instinct runs the whole show. You end up looking like you do a little bit of everything when the truth is you're actually exceptional at a couple of things, and that's the part nobody can see. The advisors who really stand out aren't the ones who can do the most things. They're the ones who make it crystal clear what they're the best at and then back that up with the kind of depth that makes someone go, okay, I don't need to keep looking. And honestly, that's true of more than just your specialties page. It's true of your whole site. The goal was never to look like you can do everything. It's to make the right person feel the second they land like they finally found the person who actually gets their exact situation. That's the whole game, really. And there's a lot more here on exactly how to pull that off, so stick around. I'm Justin Hinkle. This is the Travel Advisor website show. Subscribe for more.